Hey everyone, let's dive right into today's explainer. We're taking a close look at the cutting-edge science and, well, the stark financial realities of Intellia Therapeutics. It's a truly fascinating case study. We've got this mind-bending Nobel Prize-winning medical innovation literally colliding head-on with the brutal, incredibly cash-intensive realities of the biotech market.
Right? It's the ultimate question for biotech investors. I mean, we all want to see these revolutionary cures for severe diseases, absolutely. But from an investment and operational standpoint, does a groundbreaking scientific platform automatically translate into a sustainable, profitable business? Spoiler alert, it's not always that simple.
Just look at this number, negative $96.2 million. That single figure is Intellia's net loss in just the first quarter of 2026 alone. Think about that for a second. Despite actually beating some analyst expectations, they burned through nearly $100 million more than they brought in just a 3-month window. That is the staggering, completely brutal cost of clinical stage biotechnology.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We'll start with a quick company snapshot, look at their clinical pipeline progress, dive into those financial realities, size up the competitors and SWOT risks, and then wrap it all up with the analyst consensus.
All right, moving right along to Section 1, the company snapshot. Let's look at exactly who Intellia is.
Intellia is a genome editing company trading under the ticker NTLA. They're sitting at a market cap of roughly $1.5 billion. Based right out of Cambridge, Massachusetts, they're actually partnering with industry heavyweights like Regeneron and Novartis. Their whole focus, the entire shebang, is developing potentially curative therapeutics using highly specialized gene editing systems.
Now, you really need to grasp this crucial point. They aren't just making treatments that, just manage symptoms. No way. They are trying to permanently edit genes to eliminate hereditary diseases entirely. They use this in vivo CRISPR-Cas9 technology. What that means is the gene editing actually happens directly inside the patient's body. It's designed as a one-time treatment to durably fix the absolute root cause of a disease. Just imagine replacing a lifetime of chronic symptom management with a single permanent genetic fix. That's the holy grail here. It's a completely transformative approach to medicine.
Okay, Section 2, clinical pipeline progress. Let's see how that science is actually doing in the real world. So their lead asset, called Lonvo-z, literally just produced the world's very first Phase 3 clinical data for an in vivo gene editing candidate. Guys, this isn't just a big deal for Intellia, it's a massive, historic milestone for the entire medical community. They're targeting hereditary angioedema, or HAE, which is this really rare genetic disease that causes severe, totally unpredictable swelling attacks.
And honestly, the clinical data here is undeniably phenomenal. In their Phase 3 HALO trial, a single dose of Lonvo reduced those terrifying attacks by 87% compared to a placebo. Think about that for a second. 62% of patients were entirely attack-free and therapy-free for a full 6 months from just one single dose. Plus, the safety profile was actually very favorable, with patients reporting only mild to moderate adverse events, stuff like headaches or fatigue. This is a real game changer.
And this crazy clinical success, well, it sets up a very real commercial launch target. Because Lonvo-z snagged this special regenerative medicine advanced therapy designation from the FDA, Intellia was able to kick off a rolling biologics license application. They're planning to wrap up that submission in the second half of 2026. That essentially sets the stage for a potential U.S. launch in the first half of 2027. This right here, this is the exact moment science becomes a viable commercial product.
Oh, and importantly, they've got a second late-stage shot on goal with Nexa for ATTR amyloidosis, and it's finally back on track. The FDA had actually slapped a clinical hold on these trials late last year because of some liver abnormalities in a patient. But after working together to align on enhanced safety monitoring, the FDA lifted the hold in early 2026, so this gives Intellia a really vital second major program advancing right toward the finish line.
Let's pivot to Section 3, the financial realities. We have to talk about the cost of these cures.
Because as we know, great science requires absolutely massive R&D spending. In Q1 of 2026, Intellia brought in just $15 million in collaboration revenue, which, by the way, was actually down from $16.6 million the year prior. Meanwhile, their net loss was a staggering $96.2 million. That is a negative 668% operating margin. It really highlights the immense financial strain required to push these revolutionary treatments forward. To put it simply, for every single dollar they bring in, they are spending over $6 just to keep the research going.
Now, their April equity raise did secure their survival into at least 2028, but it came at a heavy, heavy cost, diluting current shareholders. They raised $207 million in gross proceeds, bumping their total cash and marketable securities to over $517 million. Look, this gives them the breathing room they desperately need to get to that 2027 commercial launch without going broke. But for the folks already holding the stock, that dilution applies some immediate downward pressure.
All right, Section 4, Competitors and SWOT Risks. It's time to evaluate the broader market landscape. So, Intellia is sitting at roughly a $1.5 billion market cap. But look at who they're up against, entrenched giants like J&J and Pfizer. They face immense scale pressure in the biotech sector. We're talking about massive companies with hundreds of billions in market cap, sprawling distribution networks, and marketing budgets that are just off the charts. Even if Intellia's drug gets approved, they still have to fight tooth and nail for market share against existing treatments pushed by these absolute titans.
When we do a classic SWOT analysis, it reveals this incredible, almost uncomfortable tension between breathtaking scientific progress and dangerous financial vulnerability. I mean, their strength is unparalleled. World-first phase 3 data for in vivo CRISPR. Incredible. But their weakness is glaring. Right now, they have zero gross margin, meaning they make absolutely no profit on their core operations, and that's combined with a massive cash burn. Plus, getting commercial adoption in markets that already have entrenched treatments is going to be incredibly tough. It's a really high-stakes balancing act.
And finally, Section 5, Analyst Consensus and Synthesis. Let's see what Wall Street thinks of all this.
Just look at this massive spread in price targets. It clearly indicates some really intense debate about the stock's future. You've got JP Morgan sitting way down at a bearish $5 target, while Cantor Fitzgerald is incredibly bullish, calling for $65. The consensus among 28 analysts hovers right around $25. This massive gap, it perfectly highlights how differently analysts are weighing this groundbreaking science against the very real financial risks and share dilution we just talked about.
The whole bullish case really relies on the successful commercialization of this genuinely historic medical milestone. As Intellia's CEO pointed out, they aren't just testing theories anymore, folks. They are delivering actual phase 3 results on the promise of CRISPR. If they can capture even a fraction of the $7.6 billion hereditary angioedema market or the $6.6 billion ATTR market, the revenue upside is just staggering. So, it all comes down to this. On the bull side, institutional investors like Cathie Wood's ARK are buying in heavily. They recently scooped up 214,000 shares. That shows some serious institutional appetite for this tech, especially with a clean regulatory path for Lonvo-z. But the bears rightfully point out the ticking clock of that cash burn, the persistent net losses, and the fact that success requires beating established treatments in a heavily regulated market.
I'm going to leave you with that provocative thought. Will Intellia's world-changing scientific breakthroughs ultimately outpace their brutal cash burn rate? They really represent the ultimate modern biotech dilemma. I mean, they are holding the keys to potentially curing the incurable. But the race is totally on to see if they can cross that commercial finish line before the funds run dry. What do you think will win out in the end, the science or the spreadsheets? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep digging into the data.